Dolly Parton did not disappoint.
Of course she didn't.
She's basically, you know, the fairy godmother.
And I remember he left, and then one of his people came back and was like, Pharrell wants to know if you're around later or something like that. But I said no.
Hello, babes, it's me, Adele. Go to Brit school, make some love songs.
This episode of Miss Me contains very strong language, adult themes, and conversations about drugs.
Welcome to Écoutez, salope. Listen, bitch, en français.
Écoutez, salope. That's listen, bitch.
Écoutez, salope.
Let's have our first question. The theme is teenagers. We all used to be one. We all wish we could be one again.
Wait a second.
Let's find out what we want to talk about. Bloody
one
teenagers.
Second.
Oh, one sec. Lily does have a teenager and she might be texting her right now.
No, I'm asking ChatGPT something. My new best friend.
Why are they here again?
Grandagast.
What does that mean?
That's the subject matter. Listen, bitch.
In Welsh?
Yeah. Grandagast. This phrase is extremely vulgar and confrontational in Welsh, so it should be used with caution, or not at all, depending on the situation. I'll be the judge of that. ChatGPT.
ChatGPT thinks listen bitch in general is extremely vulgar and what? Confrontational.
Confrontational. Yep. So not as vulgar and confrontational as my children, who are teenagers.
Teenagers. Let's have the first question for this week's. Say it again. Écoutez.
Écoutez, salope.
Thank you.
Or grandagast.
Whichever one you want.
Hi, Miquita and Lily. I'm Laurel from Dartmoor, and I was quite a tricky teenager growing up in the 90s. I'm the same age as you, Miquita. I had a lot of fun a little bit too early and had some severe pushback with that with my parents. I would like to know, what were you like as teenagers with your parents? Did you have tricky relationships? Was it easy? Did you get on? If they were tricky, do you think it was actually their fault rather than yours? Because, you know, that's my inkling with my situation, blaming the parents for that one. Anyway, would love to know what you were like as teenagers with your parents and if you think it was justified. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Is that a fucking trick question? We were fucking nightmares. The word I have for now is sympathy.
Sympathy or empathy for your parents?
Bit of both. Of both. Deep. And I didn't even have to have kids to feel that. I'm ashamed, actually, of some of the things I put my mother through as a teenager. And I think maybe the seeing the kids now, like Phoebe's kids and particularly Lily's kids, because Ethel's 13, I'm just like, there is another way. It can be a little bit less intense. Maybe it's intense in different ways, but just the safety issues.
Mine seem okay at the moment. I am just like terrified though that they're gonna change and become, you know,
us
raucous nightmares. Yeah, I think that growing up around pretty much most of their lives, or conscious lives at least, around sobriety has been helpful for them. So hopefully.
Yes.
My mum likes a drink and both of them like roll their eyes when Nanny Allie's a glass of wine in. They're like, yeah, she's drunk.
I know. I've seen them do it. I'm like, this is nothing.
This is literally nothing.
Oh yeah, that's my point. I think the reason that we were so raucous and so in desperate need of doing whatever, wanting to get out there in the world and taste and feel it and experience things, was because our parents were out there in the world doing all those things. I think maybe you either become like a Safi from like Ab Fab, where you go against it and you're like, okay, I'm going the other way, or you're like, yeah, me as well. Can I come? And so I was like hungry, ready, and I felt we were late. By about 13, I was like, we need to get on with this getting completely fucked up.
Yeah, they look like they were having a whale of a time. I was like,
yeah,
yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where, when we were teenagers, we went to the same places as them to hang out. Like,
yeah,
we went to their members club to have a good time. So I think we were following their lead. And I agree with you. I think that the girls have seen you sort of straighten your life out and give this whole new energy to who you are as a parent to them. and who you are in life and in the world through your sobriety, but also just who you are, getting older and becoming more and more beautiful every day and blooming. And I think that probably has given them a lot of grounding and makes them not want to have to like run or stray.
Yeah, I hope so. Although I am seeing little glimmers of it in one of my kids at the moment, but definitely with schoolwork is becoming an issue. So we're gonna have to refocus, recalibrate.
Let's have another question about bloody teenagers.
Hi guys. So I have a 15-year-old son who has ADHD, and last weekend he accidentally knocked his best mate's 2 front teeth out and gave him a concussion after smoking weed and swinging his stick around. It's all okay. We think the teeth are being reattached. But my question is, do you ever do anything like that when you were a teenager? Something that was an accident, but that made you feel so guilty, so sick to your stomach that had to involve your parents? And did it all turn out okay in the end? Thanks, and wish me luck. I've got 3 other kids who are going to be teenagers soon as well.
Yeah, good luck. I don't think I've ever punched anyone's teeth out. Is that what that kid did? Punched another kid's teeth out? Wow.
No, swung a stick at him when he was stoned.
Oh. No, that's not funny. Fucking hell.
I didn't get in trouble with my mum for it, but I remember once, and I feel like I may have talked about this on the pod before, or it's definitely something, an anecdote that I've told too many times. But me and my sister being, laid like parallel with each other on the sofa in St. Peter's Street, and we were having a fight about something, and I lifted my foot up and just put it came down onto her face, on the top of her nose here, gave her a massive nosebleed and 2 black eyes.
At the glass table in the sitting room?
Yeah, the glass table had blood all over it. And my mum had texted or called and said that she was at Angel Tube Station and 5 minutes away. And I just remember her face just like streaming blood out of it. And it wasn't just like normal blood. It had like those white bitty bits in it. And it was disgusting, and we had to like
poor Sarah though, like that's traumatic.
It's like cartilage in there, and then we had to get like a million kitchen rolls and soak everything up and try and clear it up before she walked in the door.
You can't hide that though.
I think we did.
But Lil, if the table, wow,
I think we did.
God, we were good. God, we were good. I can't believe even that you managed to hide.
I mean, I think she noticed the black eyes afterwards and was like, "What's happened here?" But I can't remember that bit. That wasn't the trauma. The trauma was the trying to clear it up before she came in the door.
I never did anything bad. Not like that. Wasn't really like that.
No, your badness came out in other ways.
I was more like manipulative.
Yeah.
Like head fuck.
Yeah.
Head games I like to play with people. I did get quite a lot of like, Miquita, you've got to be nicer to blah, blah. And I was like, I just think I just have quite a vivacious personality. And sometimes people like, I don't know, they just needed me to be a certain way with their kids that I didn't feel I had to be. Does that make sense?
Polite.
No.
Kind.
Fuck you, I'm kind.
Inclusive.
It wasn't inclusive. And I hate having to like, when I was young, I was just like, I hate like tag-alongs.
No, I know. It actually was the opposite for you. I think that you decided and honed in on the people that you thought were cool, and all of your energy and focus went on those people, and anyone else on the peripheral that got in the way, i.e. me, could fucking do one. And should be escaped at all costs. But
no. See, that's interesting that you say that, because you think that I was trying to escape you often, but actually I always saw you as internal crew. You were just a year younger than me, so I felt like I could be a bit bossier to you. You weren't a fucking tag along.
A bit of a bitch.
I could be a bit of a bitch to you, yeah. And you've been punishing me every day ever since. And I was a child. Anyway, I don't even think that was the question. We didn't even need to get into that. Let's talk more about teenagers. What else have you got, world?
Hi, Lily and Miquita. I'm Teresa from Ipswich. I work in a high school, supporting teenagers with all their sort of issues, everything that's going on in their lives. I've done that for 20 years and I love my job, and the students, they're amazing. I love teenagers. When I was younger, my icon, my absolute hero was Naina Cherry. I loved her. I wanted to be her. I wish I could morph into her. I can remember crying when she won the Brit Awards, and I had the privilege of meeting her last year on her book launch, and it was everything that I wanted it to be. She was beautiful. She was warm. She was funny. She was just really inspirational, and I was so pleased that I got that moment in my life. And, you know, you always hear that you shouldn't meet your icons because at times you're let down. I just want to know, have you ever met someone that you admired or was an icon in your life when you were a teenager, and you've either been let down and thought, actually, I wish that didn't happen, or it was a brilliant experience? Thank you so much.
I love that your icon teenage moment happened with Auntie. That's lovely. It's really nice. And yes, you're right. Correct about all those things about Lana. She really is a glowing beauty, Venus god.
Meeting your icons. Mine
Wait,
two.
let me just say something.
Okay.
This is an important time to talk about the fact that I started working when we were teenagers. So I suddenly met all these people that we might have seen from afar. But then when you were in your 20s, so, you know, a bit later, you also met like loads of people that we'd been like watching in films and listening to. It was quite sudden. Suddenly, actually, Lily and I did meet a lot of people that we probably never expected to meet. Who are your two? Go ahead.
One of the idols that I met was in my 20s when the kids were a little bit, they were tiny. But I got them all dressed up and we had our photos taken with this person. Dolly Parton did not disappoint.
Of course she didn't.
The girls didn't really know who she was. They were like, why are we making such a fuss? And she was really, really late. Did not mind at all waiting for Dolly.
What were the circumstances? Had you gone to see her play?
No, we were doing a photo shoot together for the cover of the Radio Times for a Glastonbury special because we were both playing Glastonbury that year.
Yes, Lil. That's the answer.
And the girls, I like bought them both like these sort of leopard print Dolce & Gabbana outfits, matching outfits and like little headbands and stuff. And they were furious that they'd, you know, been made to dress up in these silly clothes. And they were like, who is this woman anyway?
It's like, we're getting dressed for Auntie Dolly. Okay.
And the only thing that I could sort of give them to, you know, appease them or whatever was to say, she's basically, you know, the fairy godmother.
Yeah.
Which she kind of is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where she sits in my world.
And what was she like? Was she kind and interested?
Kind, interested, just full of energy, so chatty, funny, just everything that you would want her to be.
Thank God. I was a bit disappointed by quite a lot of rappers, I have to say, when I was a teenager. 50 Cent was a bit on my case. And I was quite young. I was like 19. I found it a bit like, woo. Nelly was quite sweet. I was just like, I can't believe I'm meeting all these like rappers I was watching on TV and on MTV in my bedroom like a year ago. It's quite fun. Pharrell Williams was great, actually. He was really great. We talked about Nirvana together and I think he thought I was cool. And at the time I thought he was cool because it was like NERD, like time. This is before like Happy. This is when Pharrell was like just this like fit skateboarder guy. Oh my God, I loved him. Remember, did I tell you that he did actually kind of like ask me out?
No.
Yeah. He, I knew he was, I think he was excited that I was like young and mixed race and knew who Nirvana were, maybe. And,
skateboard P.
Yeah. I was a bit like, I get it too. And I remember he left and then one of his people came back and was like, Pharrell wants to know if you're around later or something like that. But I said no. I was like a bit like, no, I don't know if I fancy him. I thought he was cool, but I didn't fancy him. And then I remember that story like came out and it was like on the front cover of The Voice, you know, that black magazine that used to be out. It was like, Miquita turns down Pharrell. I was like, okay, it wasn't that intense. But yeah, I did. I fucking turned him down. Was not interested. And I was a teenager. There you go. That's a good teenage story.
I think it's time for an ad break.
An ad break? Yeah, sure.
It's time for us to make no money. It's time for someone to make some money. Don't know who they are.
Not us. Not us. Must be going somewhere, though.
Let us know, 08000 30 40 90, if you are receiving any advertising royalty statements that should be coming our way. As always, you can catch up or listen to any of our Miss Me episodes on BBC Sounds.
Yes, like last week's episode where we talked about Grenfell, we talked about the changing face of the power in Hollywood, in America.
And the Ivan Novellos.
And the Ivan Novellos. We went all across the board.
This could happen to any woman, and it is happening to 1 in 5 women. And that's really scary. I was hacked, stalked, harassed, and impersonated. It was a period of absolute hell for me. The story kicks off at a very glamorous London Fashion Week setting. I was getting the coffee.
But you were hanging out in this very, very glamorous kind of environment, right?
Yeah, I was living the dream. I was clueless and innocent, and it was in this very glamorous London Fashion Week setting where I was an intern having the time of my life that I met a man who is actually at the center of this story.
Welcome back to Listen Bitch. We are dancing in the fountain of youth. We're talking about teenagers.
Fountain of youth, and I'm dehydrated. Nope, I said, oh no.
Where is it? Where is it, Lil? Said Fountain of Youth. I know it's in a new Netflix show with Natalie Portman, but if I could locate it, that'd be great. Sorry, I think it's an Apple show.
Please, can you just give me another question?
She's hurting, man.
I need the question, please. Just give it to me.
Fix.
I've got nothing to talk about. I've run out of things. Give me a question.
Hi, Lily and Miquita. It's Emma here from Marlow. Love the podcast. My question around teenagers is this. I have a 2-year-old, nearly 3-year-old boy, and already worrying about the teenage parenting phase coming up. So what do you think are the most important things we need to incorporate into our parenting for teenage boys specifically? There's so much misinformation online, awful stuff on social media that's targeted specifically at teenage boys. So what do you think we can do as parents to combat that? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bloody hell. I mean, Phoebe's going to have to do this. So that's coming for her. And it's not my problem.
I mean, that's the minefield that I don't really want to get involved in, to be honest. I mean, I think I was listening to this podcast yesterday with this guy called Terry Real, who's like I think he's like a relationship counselor or therapist. But he was talking about, you know, the problem with modern males and why they sort of are floundering so much. And his theory is that because there isn't a sort of archetypal male role model anymore, and there is so much misinformation out there, and that, you know, simple ideas are for, you know, simple people, basically. And that, you know, all of the sort of Andrew Tate messaging is just lazy more than anything else. And that men are far more complicated than they are allowed to be within society, and that there's not really much space for them to be vulnerable, truly vulnerable with their feelings, and are, you know, not encouraged to be necessarily communicative within their relationships, and that is an issue. So I would say, you know, if you are a mother of a boy, then, you know, just communication and dialogue about feelings, you know?
Right.
All the time, and just get boys used to talking about their real feelings, not what they think they should be feeling because of the messaging that is out there, but actually what's going on inside them.
I never really thought about this sort of Andrew Tate bullshit, simplifying the male far too much and taking away the complexities of them as a human being, kind of as a right to be a bit complicated.
Yeah.
And actually that being kind of stripped from you and simplified and summarized. I would say probably don't show them any Andrew Tate stuff. That would be...
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't show them that shit.
Maybe, you know, mute Andrew Tate from all their social media platforms without them knowing. Next time you get their phone.
I feel like there are good male role models in this country, but they're quite like, I mean, I guess they're a bit nichey, but like, I would say David Mitchell is a great male role model. I feel like he's extremely smart, very funny, interested and interesting.
Michael McIntyre.
Michael McIntyre.
I love Michael McIntyre.
They just look a bit alike. That's not the same thing.
They don't look anything alike. They just got brown hair.
No, actually, I don't want to do that to David Mitchell. That's really rude because I think he's actually quite sexy. But Michael McIntyre is not really like a great thinker. Is he?
I think he's quite clever, yeah.
But I feel like when we were younger, it was like Arnold Schwarzenegger and David Attenborough.
Yeah.
Don't know. So yeah, look for male role models in unexpected places. I'm sure you'll find some. I hope that was helpful, lady from Marlow. I really do. Let's have another question for this week's Écoutez
salope.
Salope.
Hi, Lily and Miquita. I'm Abby. I am from Bristol, but I am currently in Australia travelling, and I'm sat on Perth coastline looking out at the sea and listening to your podcast. When I was a teenager, I always had this idea of wanting to go travelling, but never thought I would actually be able to do it because I was terrified, and everybody always told me like, oh, you can't travel on your own, that's really scary. And like a year ago, I'm 23, I was like, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go on my own. So when you were a teenager, what were you really fearful of, and then you just did it, and it has been a brilliant experience. Can't wait to hear, and thank you for the podcast. It fills me with joy every time I listen.
Ecstasy.
But you did it anyway. You put your big girl pants on and you dove in.
I put my big girl pants on and I really jumped off that cliff into the unknown. Boy, was it a ride.
A bumpy ride.
For about 15 hours, and then it was not much of a ride for about 4 days afterwards, so I wouldn't recommend it.
Of course, we're not suggesting that ecstasy is a good time and that drugs are a good thing to do. They're very often not.
No. I also went travelling. I went travelling really young. Yeah, I think I was 17, 18.
Well, you and Phoebe had some, again, because I had to fucking work.
No, but before Phoebe, I went to India on my own.
What?
Yeah, I went to India on my own first, and then I flew from India to Thailand.
Sure. Okay, I knew you were somewhere before you went to Thailand, but Phoebe and Lily basically had a gap year, and I didn't have that opportunity because I had to like do T4 summer tour like around Sheffield or something, and I was so jealous. And I think I just have to quickly say, like, I really didn't get my summers. Like 16 to 20, I did this thing called T4 Summer Tour, and it would take 6 weeks, and you would go all around filming T4 from around the country. And you guys were not doing that. You were out having fun, and I found it really hard. Yeah. Really hard.
It wasn't all fun and games, though. Some serious things happened, and we had to call the parents in to come and help us and rescue us. So
absolutely, Garfield was called to Thailand to sort some shit out, and that was.
I cried when I saw him walk in the bar. I was like, oh, thank fuck, you're here.
Oh yeah, you think you don't want any parents, and you're like, yeah, freedom, gap here, traveling. Then something happens, and you see them, you're like, Garfield, come here and make everything better. Yeah. How was it? How was gap year for you though? How was that kind of India to time?
Can we stop saying gap year? I didn't even do any GCSEs. So I was like into my 5th gap year at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I went to India for a bit. I can't remember how long. It seems like it was like, months, but it was probably weeks. And then I flew to Thailand. I think me and Phoebe then flew from Thailand to Cambodia. We did Cambodia for a little bit.
Did you?
Yeah, we went to see Angkor Wat. And we went to Phnom Penh, and there was this it was crazy Cambodia because obviously it was after the Khmer Rouge had happened and Pol Pot, and so a big part of that regime was that he killed a lot of the academic classes, the middle classes, and so anyone that sort of had an education, or I think even like wore glasses was like one of the things that he didn't like, and so there was people were massacred in the killing fields. And so there was a real lack of people over a certain age in that country. Everyone seemed really young. There were no old people.
I can't believe we've both been to that place. Fuck.
Yeah, crazy. Anyway, we did quite a lot of, historical, educational visits on that trip.
I can't believe that you two incorporated this into that trip. Didn't know that.
I think it was sort of quite unavoidable, because it was nearly 25 years ago that this happened?
No, Phoebe was like 19, you were 18, so like 22 years ago.
Yeah, not far off 25.
No, but let's not make us too old. I actually did get to travel quite a lot between these years. I'm bitching about T4 and saying we just did summer tour, but to be fair, I also went to like Vegas, LA, Australia, Japan, and like toured the world. So I'm actually really quite a lucky bitch in my late teens with traveling. But I don't even think the question was about traveling. Anyway, I hope we answered it. Let's have another one.
Hi, Lily and Miquita. My name's Ruby and I'm from Surrey originally, but I'm currently living in Dubai. I am an English teacher, so the nature of my job means that I am constantly surrounded by teenagers and I love it. They are solid entertainment, challenging at times, obviously, but there isn't a day that I don't come to work and laugh, sometimes at them rather than with them, but regardless, they are a top act at times. Anyway, part of the reason why I love listening to your podcast is because it reminds me of the relationships I have with some of my friends at home. And it got me thinking about how I am actually still very close with my school friends. And I wondered, are you guys still in touch with people from school? And what's the best memory that you have with some of your school friends? Thanks. Bye.
Good question. No.
Absolutely not.
Oh, Jessie. Yeah, primary school, Jessie Robers. Did Sci-Fi went to Holland Park?
You're not really in touch with Sci-Fi now.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Are you?
Yeah, we spoke last year because he was going to come to Phoebe's
Last
picnic.
year? Okay. So no.
So he was going to come to Phoebe's 40th and we hadn't talked in about 10 years, but I love him dearly and he still calls me Mayor Quimby. Yes, Quimby. I'm like, please don't call me that, Simon.
Andrews. He calls me Andrews. Always has done.
You Andrews, yeah?
Andrews.
Why are you Andrews?
Yes, Andrews. I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. Never asked him.
It's a Sci-Fi thing. We both went to so many different schools. I didn't really make friends after the second. I was just like, I'm done trying to pretend that I'm not leaving here in about 6 months. So I definitely don't have any friends from school, but we just have lots and lots and lots of family friends.
Yeah. I mean, I find it difficult staying in touch with people who are in my life now. So, the idea that I would have kept contact with people from 25 years ago, no, not really.
With Izzy from Hill House.
There are people that I run into by accident that I went to school with, but I don't really have like active relationships with people from school, no.
If I saw some of the people from summer schools, if I saw anyone from Centre Academy, I'd be like, whoa. Do you remember that weird boy that I brought to your house once?
No.
Really? You don't remember that?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I saw him the other day and I was like, oh my God. And I hid.
Where did you hide?
Behind a bin in Shepherd's Bush.
I knew there was more to that. That is a great image. You hid behind a bin to avoid from Central College.
From Central Academy in Clapham.
Oh.
Rites of passage when we were young, let's be honest, what are they? Sort of frolicking, fingering, fancying.
You love talking about a good fingering, don't you? It's like your favourite subject matter.
If we're not going to do it for Listen Bitch, I'll get it in other ways. But I think they might have changed rites of passage now. And you tell me, you're growing a modern teenager. I feel like now it's like, well, especially like in London, this wasn't a big one for us, but like passing your driving test. That's probably a very big one for an American teenager. Exam results.
Not in New York. No one really cares to drive in New York.
Yeah.
Rites of passage. I don't know. It's funny because like my girls go to a private school here in New York, but their best friend goes to a public school, on the other side of Brooklyn. And there seems to be a lot more like dating or like interest in boys in the public school arena than there is in the private school arena. There's a real like gender divide at their school.
Oh.
They don't like, my girls never get invited to boys' birthday parties and they would never invite boys to theirs. It's really interesting.
But I think we're just so on the cusp because you know how quickly it changes. You can be a bit like la 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 la, and then suddenly it's all you're thinking about.
One of my children is definitely taking an interest in boys.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh my God. Yep.
She has a crush. They call it a crush here. Who's your crush?
Oh my God, I love a crush, and I'm 41. Good for you, said child. Have your crush. God, I don't remember your first crush. I mean, obviously yours was Stephen Gately, but I had so many. And they all have a different part of my heart. Like Austin O'Brien from Last Action Hero. Remember him?
No. Let's have another question.
Where were you in our childhood?
Disassociated.
Hi, Lily and Miquita. My name's Layla. I'm from Worktop. I actually work with young offenders, so this is quite a fit-in topic. And I also listen to your podcast whilst I am doing my case notes or assessment writing and things like that. It just helps me. I've got ADHD, so it helps me just focus and just type away. So basically my question is, do we think the youth of today is, in quotation marks, worse than maybe like in the 2000s when I was growing up, 90s when you guys were growing up? Because I feel like there's a lot of like hatred and pressure towards teenagers today. Do you think that's because a lot of it is more aired on like social media? You know, more people are aware of it because they see it. Because like, well, I used to buy fags at 12. Teenagers have always been teenagers, but I feel like people forget that when they become an adult, they become too far away from it and then they start to judge. Actually, being a teenager is like one of the hardest parts in life, I think. So yeah, what do you think? Are they worse, or are they just portrayed in a worse way because of social media and the news and things like that? Thank you.
I think that it's not as bad as it was. I mean, like, I feel like maybe teenagers have become somewhat subdued because they are, you know, so engrossed in their phones. So, you know, when we were teenagers and maybe, you know, young adults, there was that phrase or acronym ASBO that was being thrown around all the time. Do you remember? It was like,
oh yeah, ASBO.
Kids causing trouble on the streets, and I don't feel a sense of that much anymore. And I wonder if it's because phones have sort of like placated young people in some way, or are just distracting them so that they're not sort of taking out their aggression on each other physically in the real world. Maybe they're just bullying each other in WhatsApp groups.
Well, I don't feel like people get into trouble in the way that we did, for one. But when do you think that the teenager it began?
What?
Because remember, the teenager hasn't always been around. There were young people and there were old people. The teenager was only really coined in like the late 50s. And
do you mean the word teenager?
Yes, the word teenager, but also before then, it wasn't like a state of life. You were young and then you were married and you were a grown-up. You went into being a grown-up. To have this state of life, this moment of adolescence, and then to have it celebrated and, you know, frolicked through was as a result of, I suppose, the war ending and rock and roll entering.
Okay.
So there were like quite big political things happening and the world around you changing. I think there was also more disposable income after the war for the young person. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there were also teenagers were like quite political and they were like part of things. Suddenly they had a voice to be a young adult, and you had a voice and you could like make change. There were things to stand up against. Of course, we're living at a time where there still fucking is, but it doesn't feel like it has that kind of power that it used to. The power of the teenager, I don't think, is as strong as it once was. It might be lost in.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if that's just because you don't really see it out on the streets. Although I do think, you know, young people tend to be more vocal about, you know, world events and what's going on politically and socially. I think that, like, you know, the George Floyd movement, what's going on in Israel and Palestine, you know, young people are really vocal about those issues. And I have a lot of hope for them, actually, I think.
I hope that young people are sitting in rooms exchanging ideas and having discussions about those things and not just being vocal on their phones or on social media. I hope young people feel brave enough to like shout as well.
Take it to the streets.
Exactly. Take it to the fucking streets. Yeah, definitely.
You can't topple anything without people power. Not that I'm encouraging toppling of anything, just in case the BBC are concerned about any calls to action.
That is not a call to action, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did we talk about everything I want to talk about? Yes, we did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. It was lovely. It was lovely. It made me want to be 17 again. Even though TV stole my youth, I would love to have it back one day. In a second life, maybe.
I think you did quite well out of your teens.
So we asked you guys, you listen bitch people, to give us some Listen Bitch themes. They were very good. So next week's Listen Bitch, as chosen by Adele from Los Angeles via Tottenham. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, we see you. Adele would like life hacks.
Hello, babes. It's me, Adele.
Hi, babe.
I just want to know what life hacks you got.
Thank you. I think it's a great theme, Adele. We'll go with it.
Go to Brit school, make some love songs.
Yeah, exactly. That's really good. Talk about fucking hacking up the life. She definitely... You did so well, Adele.
Okay, obviously it's not the real Adele.
Joking. She's too busy to send us a voice note, obviously. She's got shit to do. The number to call is 08000 30 40 90, 08000 30 40 90. The theme is life hacks. We will see you then for a celebration of how to live a life. I'll see you then, Lilsey.
Bye, babe.
Bye.